Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday message for May 16th of 2021. The message that I gave on April 18th was talking about the ascension of Jesus and about our own ascension. And this past Friday, May 14th, was when Christian churches around the world celebrated the ascension of Christ Jesus. So today, we are honoring the ascension of Christ Jesus and our own ascension out of the bonds of the third dimensional plane of living. Each and every one of us can have that personal ascension out of our own challenges, stresses, lack, limitation, and all the myriad of different things that happen on this earth plane. However, this is not a simple task to do. It's a task that requires discipline, diligence, and an absolute desire to have this take place in our lives. We're the ones who make the choice day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment, to have this connection with the Christ of our own being. But we do not do this alone. The Master Jesus told this in these words: I can of my own self do nothing. Therefore, if I of my own self can do nothing, there must be something that does the work. There must be something working in my personal experience that is responsible for my life and its demonstration on this earth. What is it? Joel Goldsmith states in his book, The Contemplative Life, first of all, it is the realized presence of the Spirit within. And secondly, it is abiding constantly and consciously in the realization that whatever I'm being presented with is a picture. A picture, sometimes good, sometimes not so good. But I must not be attached to any picture. Goldsmith states, I must not celebrate the good and I must not fear the not so good. I must realize the unreal and impersonal nature of both. So he writes in the book that the function of the Christ within each and every one of us is to break our attachment to this third dimensional world that we live in and to what he calls the pictures of the world. So according to Goldsmith, the Christ part of us actually acts to overcome our desires and possessiveness of wanting all the great good things of the world. And at the same time, the Christ part of us acts to overcome our fears and hates of all the things going on in the world that we wish were not happening. He says that we can come to the realization that both the good and the not so good are just appearances, like in a dream. And Jesus once said, awake those that sleep. And what he was talking about is that we as human beings are asleep to the true reality of what's happening in this world and what moves this world to be what it is. So in a sense, we are actually walking around in a dream state, and we are dreaming of both the good and the not so good. What Goldsmith talks about is that at no stage in our journey on this planet, our unfoldment into this greater spiritual awareness in life and living, are we to forget that there are two important principles of living this life. And the first principle is the attainment of the consciousness of the presence of God within us. And the second principle is that everything outside of us that we don't care for actually has its origin in the universal belief of two powers. In unity, we have what we call 5 precepts. And the very first of those precepts states, there is only one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life, God, the good omnipotent, one presence, one power, God the good. And this means that the only power in the universe is for good. So when we meditate, we read, we contemplate the presence and power of God in our lives, Goldsmith writes that we should at least know the goal of meditating and do all this, preparatory work for our day. He writes that the whole purpose of meditating, picturing our day going forward, or whatever we do first thing in the morning, in truth, it's actually to consciously remember that the Spirit of God is within us, as us. It's closer than our own breathing because source, is the breath itself. Within our consciousness, it's the fullness of God's source, and it's that God itself fulfilling itself as our own individual experience in life. That God is fulfilling itself in an individual way, in whatever way it is that you personally are doing your life. In any and every physical form on this earth, God is fulfilling itself. And God is fulfilling itself at our particular level of consciousness, at our own personal particular state of receptivity. And this is what must be consciously remembered day in and day out, moment by moment throughout each and every day. If you think of all the different members of our families, friends, associates, we can remember that God is fulfilling itself as the individual experience in each and every one of those people. And even in those we do not like, those who are doing harm to one another or whatever. But that every single human being in this earth is actually expressing God. Each individual, no matter what he or she is doing, is the point of fulfillment, as Goldsmith wrote, through which the energy of God's source is appearing on earth. Now, I know that this is not an easy one to swallow or to understand until you understand that the presence and power of God on this earth is an energy form coming from source itself through us. Each and every one of us has been given free will. It's as if we've been given a ray of energy through our own personal thoughts and feelings that are going out and manifesting themselves in the world. Since God's source does not judge, each and every one of us can do whatever we want with that energy. It's up to us to make the choice of how we're going to use and utilize this energy. And this is why I've titled this talk, Daily Preparation for Spiritual Living. Because it is each and every day, each and every hour, each and every moment that we individually make the decision of how that energy is going to be expressed through us on into this world. We live in a world of conflict. We have individual conflicts, family conflicts, group conflicts, national conflicts, international conflicts. And yet, if we look at conflict as being a true reality, then we are looking at life from the activity of a universal belief in two powers. In God, there is no conflict. So if we observe conflict in the outer world, we have the choice of taking that in and dwelling on it and accepting it as a truth, or we can look at conflict in the outer world or inside of ourselves and realize that what we are seeing is a belief in two powers, good and not good. We will never know harmony until we recognize that first precept of unity. There is only one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotent. If you want peace and harmony, you really have to get it, that there is only one presence and one power. When Jesus made the statement, I and my Father are one, he wasn't talking about himself. He was talking about all of us. When we are faced with challenges, we could say to ourselves, I and my Father are one. In this oneness, the infinite all power, which is spiritual, is the only presence, is the only power functioning in my experience. And what we're doing is we are not choosing good over not so good. Rather, what we're doing is giving up the whole thought there is good and not so good on this earth. We give all those thoughts up and own the spiritual thoughts that there is only good on this earth. And we could even have the affirmation that Goldsmith writes, since God constitutes the law of my being, I am governed by spiritual being, spiritual law, spiritual light, and spiritual truth. So if we practice this state of consciousness daily, Goldsmith writes that there will be a time when, at the deepest part of our being, we really begin to understand that this is the secret of the universe, the secret of harmony, the secret of life. Once we really know that the consciousness of the presence of God in us, as us, is the only reality there is, and that there is no two-law universe. There is only the spiritual law universe of God. And when we know that, the discords and inharmonies will melt away. Gradually, maybe, but they will melt away. The things that Goldsmith talks about in this book is that when we come to understand that there is only the law of God of good, and we fully bring that into our cellular structure, things begin to happen around us that can seem miraculous at some level. And yet it's the natural outworking of our acceptance that there is only good happening in our lives. For some, as we accept the presence and power of God active in our lives, our health begins to improve, relationships begin to improve, our finances begin to improve. Good things just seem to start coming our way. All this comes about not because of some outside force, but by the fact that you are choosing to use the energy of the God source within you as you to think and feel only the good. Your entire consciousness is now thinking and feeling good in your life. You are utilizing the power of God in you to only create good. Goldsmith writes that in order to have the depths of spiritual living that we truly want, it's up to us to make these choices, like I say, day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment. But one of the things that he writes about is that we are to attain the awareness. And it's an actual feeling, an actual realization, a physical realization of the divine presence within us. And this is an actual physical experience. It's a feeling inside of you when you have actually tapped into source energy. And this doesn't happen immediately, but it will happen the more we take the time to choose to move our thoughts away from things happening on the earth to the fact that source energy is in us, as us. And this is something that you will experience for yourself. You won't be able to analyze it or dissect it or even explain it to anybody else. Even those who have had the experience of feeling and knowing this presence of God within them can only say to you, I know what you're talking about. even though I have not had your same experience, because no one can understand your experience. You are the only one who can truly know what your experience is like. If you try to explain it to somebody and they start saying, oh, it's this or this or this or whatever, just know that they have had their experience, but their experience is going to be different from yours. So never try to judge your experience with someone else's experience. Each experience is unique to each and every individual person. The thing is, though, when you do have this experience, this physical feeling, this physical knowingness of the Christ in you, as source in you, as you, there will be a change in you. There will be a shift away from the poles of this earth in a way that you never realized before. And once you have this experience, then you will understand why all the daily preparation has been essential to your growth. It's then and only then that you will truly understand why meditating every day, why spending time in prayer and contemplation every day, why sending love to all people, not only the ones that you like, but to every single person on this earth, is so incredibly important. And something I want to explain about these experiences is this. Just because you have this incredible, wonderful, powerful spiritual experience does not mean that all your challenges in life are going to be over. Problems are still going to crop up. Challenges are still going to happen. The difference is that when they do, you will no longer be looking at them as problems and challenges. You are going to know without a doubt that this is just old energy from the past that's coming forward in time, and it will be dissolved completely if you just hold fast to one presence and one power in your life. And some of the things that a lot of people share is that after having some sort of a physical experience of source within them, they feel freedom from being concerned about what's going on around them. Goldsmith even writes that after you've had some sort of an experience, that problems may still come and go, and that this is the normal, natural experience in life until, as he writes, through the continued realization of spiritual identity, spiritual life, and spiritual law, one comes to the place described by the Master Jesus as the overcoming of the world. But we have to understand that Jesus did not overcome the world in the first year of his learning. You know, I've mentioned before in another talk that Jesus had over 21 years of learning, sharing, practicing all of his gifts in order to do all the things that he was able to do. It is through this daily practice of connecting with Source, of being one with Source, that we are able to build our inner knowingness that disease is not a truth, that lack and limitation is not a truth, that outside challenges of the world are not a truth. We don't get to that point in one day or 1 week or 1 year. It takes time, and time equals evolution. You know, all life is a process of evolution, and all of life is a process of spiritual evolution, of the evolution of consciousness. So if we look back through all of our history books, we can see the evolution consciousness of humanity happening. It's been a spiritual evolution. And it's a spiritual consciousness evolution that still continues today and will continue on in the future. So when we have a nice, wonderful spiritual experience, that experience actually begins to unfold and evolve in our lives. As we hold firm to what brought us to having that experience, then gradually, over time, all of our problems in life seem to just be solved quietly, peacefully, without worry, without fear. As long as we hold firm to the truth of our being and we call upon source energy to assist us, everything that looks like a challenge will be smoothed away for us. And Goldsmith writes in this book, but soon this activity of the Christ begins to act as a leaven in your human experience. The relationships with others begin to be more harmonious, more natural, more joyous. Our efforts, whether in business, art, or profession, becomes less arduous and less tiresome. Actually more joyous as they also become more fruitful. Conditions of health begin to change. And you do not really realize that there has been any change until one day something may cause you to look back and suddenly we are aware that in the last few months, we felt more at peace. We may discover that some physical imperfection is no longer present, that financial challenges have been resolved. All this is a gradual process, an evolutionary process, but it leads always to a higher and higher states of spiritual awareness, divine consciousness, resulting in peace and harmony on earth. But he does warn us that one experience of the Christ within us is not sufficient to complete the demonstration of our particular life experience. He says there have been many in the history of the world who have attained some measure of this realization of the divine presence, and yet have continued to suffer discords, diseases, injustices, and inequality. That at one level, when they have had such a sense of inner peace and joy, their outer experiences didn't match the inner harmony that they felt they had attained. So Goldsmith addresses it this way. He writes that in the days of early metaphysics, it was discovered that the discords of this world are not as real as they appear to be, and that they do not have the substance or law that they appear to have. So later, this led to the discovery that we are all dealing not with personal disease or personal discord, but with a universal source of individual problems. That in a way, it was as if there was a mortal mind and the spiritual mind. The mortal mind believed everything on this third dimensional plane of existence was real, that what was real and life was what your five senses dealt with, that everything that you could touch, taste, see, smell, or hear was what was really true. And of course, for centuries upon centuries, humankind has believed that. So what we began to see is more disease, death, lack, limitation, old age, and all of that. This is what is considered to be the belief in two powers. It was this universal belief in two powers that constitutes the mortal mind. And as Goldsmith writes, it's the source of every discord, every disease, every form of lack, or whatever else you might have going on in your life. None of these things will ever be solved, according to Goldsmith, as long as we believe in good and not good. As long as we believe in prosperity and lack, there will always be lack. As long as we believe in health and ill health, there will always be ill health. As long as we believe in good relationships and bad relationships, there will always be bad relationships. So Goldsmith writes, is there any way of proving this? And he states, the answer is that no form of disease, lack, or any unhappy situation could ever be resolved metaphysically or spiritually if there was a belief in discord, in harmony, disease, or lack in the body. because this belief has been passed down through generations. We in this generation must be diligent in affirming only one presence and one power. Goldsmith writes that if we were to step back from trying to change a physical condition, lack and limitation, or whatever challenge is going on in our lives, and just move to affirming the presence of God, the good in our lives, we would actually begin to overcome this universal belief of the good and the not good. That we individually will begin the process of shifting the universal energy away from our belief that this physical plane of existence has power over us, and that we have to fall under the laws that affect this earth plane, and that we have no power within our own beings to heal, to prosper, to find joy, to have peace and harmony in our lives, or anything else that we desire. Once we make this our daily practice, then and only then will we truly begin to see our own personal world evolve to the point of the love, peace, harmony, health, prosperity, and all the other things that we truly desire. As each one of us individually changes our energetic field to truly being one with Source, our energetic field goes out and affects everyone around us and assists in raising them up to understanding the universal law of one, the universal law of true love, and all the good that follows from that. Until we reach that point, however, it is best to take care of yourself physically, as we know what to do on this physical plane. Do what you feel is right for you to do to keep yourself healthy, to keep yourself prosperous, to keep yourself owning the good in your life. These bodies are still on this earth. Exercise, eating the right foods, drinking a lot of water, getting the right sleep. They are all forms that deal with this third dimensional way of living. We cannot just set aside everything we know on how to keep these bodies physically healthy, our minds physically active, our world in the aspect of love and light. We do what we need to do. At the same time, allowing ourselves to take in there is only one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life, God, the good, omnipotent. So let's take this into a time of meditation. I invite you to just sit back and relax, put your feet flat on the floor, and close your eyes. Now take a deep breath in, and as you let it out, just allow your body to fully relax. You can say this to yourself: God and I are one. God, Source, is in me as me. God, Source, brings all good in life. God, Source, does not bring health. God is health itself. God does not bring life. God is life itself. God does not bring abundance. God is abundance itself. God and I are one. God, Source, is in me as me. Therefore, I also am health itself. I also am life itself. I also am abundance itself. And the more I affirm this, the more I take this in, the more I know this at every cell in my body, the more my connection to True Source is made. The more my expression of this comes out into this world. And the more I affirm this, and the more I know this in every cell of my body, the more my life radiates the presence and the power of the one source God to the world. And so it is. Amen. So thank you so much for joining with us today. Thank you for being a part of our Unity Clear Lake Center community. And I truly want to thank all of you for your tithes, your gifts, your love offerings that you send to the center to help keep this center alive, functioning, and very financially healthy. So thank you all. God bless. Namaste. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful week. God bless everyone. Many blessings.